New York people power. This is the reaction in the city to the visit by Iran's President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad.
Mr. Obama, stop your appeasement policy. It is time to realize that this criminal regime must go.
Part street theatre, part political rage. This protest, just down the road from the UN, has drawn together Iranian exiles, Syrians and former diplomats and politicians, a group united in a push for change in Iran.
Let's get rid of this theocracy. Let's get rid of these military dictators. Let's let the people of Iran be free. Thank you very much.
Inside the UN building, the Iranian president was delivering a speech to the General Assembly, well aware of the anger on the streets outside.
تهدید ملت بزرگ ایران به حمله نظامی از سوی صهیونیست‌های بی‌فرهنگ از نمونه‌های بارز این واقعیت تلخ است. بی‌اعتمادی بر روابط بین الملل حاکم است و مرجع مورد اعتماد و عادلی برای رفع مناقشات وجود ندارد. حتی کسانی که هزاران بمب اتم و انواع سلاح انبار کرده اند احساس امنیت نمی‌کنند.
The former US ambassador to the UN was unimpressed.
The longer they are able to pursue their objective of deliverable nuclear weapons, the greater the likelihood that while they're in the process of denying the real Holocaust, they are preparing a nuclear Holocaust.
But feelings towards Mahmoud Ahmadinejad are being expressed even more bluntly here in the New York press. The New York Post made its views of the Iranian president known this way. Then, this scuffle outside the UN.
He's the terrorist! Get the terrorist!
An Iranian diplomat confronted by outraged New Yorkers.
Come here! I'm gonna beat the guy out!
In the sanctity of New York's Museum of Jewish Heritage, an even more profound sense of outrage simmers. This city's Jewish community deeply affronted that the Iranian president's remarks came on the holiest of Jewish holidays, Yom Kippur.
That our normal society treats him like a diplomat, like a head of state, doesn't ostracize him, doesn't boycott him. You know, he has a right to come to New York, sit in your hotel room and go to the UN and back and forth. He's been on media. He's been celebrated by all kinds of groups. I find that very, very offensive.
The Anti-Defamation League's Abe Foxman is one of 31,000 Holocaust survivors living in New York. The Iranians say they're just expressing freedom of speech. What do you think about that?
The irony of it is the freedom of expression that exists in Iran. My God, how many journalists, how many people are sitting in prison because they voiced an opinion, because they challenged the regime or what it says, etc. So, you know, okay. But you see, he can do this. And you're polite. Nobody's saying they can't say it. I have a right to say how horrific it is. And I have a right to say to the institutions of our land to say, don't treat him, don't give him that legitimacy. Don't treat him with this dignity. He hasn't earned it. He hasn't deserved it.
Sit down with President Ahmadinejad.
Abe Foxman watched CNN last week and saw this.
So I'm simply asking you to state very clearly and simply whether you believed over 6 million Jews were killed by the Nazis in the war or not. And the answer is either yes or no. It's not a difficult question.
Your assumption is that this event took place. Where did it take place? Whom were the individuals responsible for this event? What does this have to do with the occupation of Palestine? What role did the people of Palestine play in this event? These are very clear and transparent questions, sir. The third question I have. If a historical event has indeed taken place, why so much sensitivity surrounding it by politicians?
Here's a head of state who has engaged in language so similar to the language of Hitler, who publicly says we'll wipe out this country of Jews of the face of, and yet he sits like you and I sit, and with CNN and with AP, and I find that offensive. I find that horrific. I find that frightening.
Where should a red line be drawn? A red line should be drawn right here. Before Iran completes the second stage of nuclear enrichment necessary to make a bomb. Before Iran
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu used his turn at the UN to strike back at Iran, calling for swift action to stop Iran's nuclear ambitions.
And I believe that faced with a clear red line, Iran will back down. And this will give more time for sanctions and diplomacy to convince Iran to dismantle its nuclear weapons program altogether.
He drew a very simple picture. Here's a bomb. Everybody knows what a bomb looks like. And then he put a little red line. So I think it's part of an awareness of a sensitivity. What's the result? All of a sudden, they're talking about another meeting. You know, otherwise, they're going to wait for meetings for weeks, for months. So it does, at the end of the day, if Iran does not stop, then I think some very serious people in some very serious places will make a decision.
Iran says it doesn't believe that Israel will ever attack.
I think the one thing that Israel's learned from history is when somebody says to you, I'm going to kill you, believe them. The last time, people said, don't believe, we paid a heavy price. So they take it seriously. I think if they come to the realization that Iran continues to build it or have the ability, and the world is just going to stand by and do nothing, yeah. Because if it's a question of their existence, they will act.
So what do the Iranians think of all the hostility towards them here? Calls for change, the attack on their diplomat, and a stinging press campaign against them. I sat down with the Iranian Foreign Minister and asked him how the delegation has reacted to such aggression.
We may disagree on things, individuals may disagree on issues, but this does not mean to show disrespect to each other. So I think this action is not really welcomed by anybody. And we do not attach very much importance to it. It's an incident that has happened, and so it's now over. Nothing serious has happened.
4 years ago, when President Obama first came into office, he angered the American people when he said that he wanted to offer a hand in friendship to Iran. Why do you think that relationship hasn't improved or it hasn't sort of merged towards dialogue?
Our complaint is about American action, U.S. government action against Iran. It has never been friendly. So it's only very natural that when you see one side treats you unfairly and unjustly, what else you can do? I mean, the only response you will have is to say, well, why do you do this? Why don't you come to your senses? Until the time when they come to the admission that a political relationship with Iran should be on equal footing, on equal par. Until such time comes, I think it will be very difficult to have any sort of, I would say, rapprochement.
You spoke of the mistrust and the aggression of America towards Iran. In fact, Israel feels that that aggression is coming from Iran's side. Why do you think that hostility exists from Iran towards Israel then?
Well, this is a claim by Israel that have we done any aggression on any nation. What is the proof?
I think it's comments by the president this week even, that, you know, denial of the Holocaust, or that Israel would eventually be eliminated from the region. I think that's what sort of creates this animosity.
Yes, everybody can have its own view about issues. If we speak about events that have taken place in history, and when we speak about the freedom of speech, and we want to analyze some event that has taken place in some time in the past, and then turn this into an issue that becomes an instrument for threatening military action against another nation, this is absolutely, I think, absurd. Had the Zionist regime be serious about this, they wouldn't have made so much noise. They would have done what they wanted to do. This noise is to regain the lost, I would say, stature, international stature, once they enjoyed as an undefeatable power in the Middle East, because they raised I don't know how many wars with the neighboring Arab countries, and they achieved nothing. And so they lost their credibility. They are looking for ways of regaining that credibility, so they are making all these noises.
So you think they used the Holocaust to threaten Iran? Is that what you mean?
Well, you see, what I'm trying to say that the Holocaust is something in the past. There are different views about the size, about the history of the development of such a catastrophe. But this is left to the historians. Everybody should be given the opportunity to give his views based on the facts that he gathers from here and there. Let people speak their minds. And why we turn this issue into such a big deal?
Some would argue that perhaps the United States and Israel have a double standard towards Iran, that they have nuclear weapons, yet they try and hold Iran accountable and question their nuclear program. How do you react to that?
You see a country that has amassed thousands of nuclear warheads and has used this vicious weapon against innocent people in the past, killing hundreds of thousands, is now accusing my country that we may have the intention of going towards nuclear weapons. While we have denied this, our supreme leader has very explicitly issued a fatwa that would forbid the production and the accumulation and the use of weapons of mass destruction, including the nuclear weapons. This is absurd. Nobody buys this.
Just finally, I just wanted to know Iran's stance on Syria. Would you be supportive of a future government that's not Bashar al-Assad's?
You see, we are a strong ally of the people of Syria. We have expressed our position that people of Syria, like any other people in the world, have the right to enjoy democracy, the right for election, the right, any right that any citizen enjoys in any democratic country. But when it comes to interference, outside interference, into the internal affairs of Syria, and when outside powers dictate upon the Syrian people that, look, your president should step down and this should happen, this is not the right way to do things.
There has been a revolution from within, though, within Syria. The people have risen.
Yes, I mean, there have been uprisings. There have been demands put forward, and we said it is incumbent upon the government of Syria to meet the demands of its people. What we are saying is that both sides have to recognize the other side. In other words, the government has to recognize the opposition. what we can do is to facilitate this, to facilitate the sitting between the government and the opposition so that they find a way out for this crisis.